So the pasuk begins, the parsha begins, Ve'ela Mishpatim asher tosim lifneihem. Usually a parsha does not begin with the word vav, ve'ela, and these are. So Rashi comments on this, and Rashi says, Ve'ela HaMishpatim kol makom shenemra ba shenemra ela posal rishonim. Usually when the Torah uses the word ela, it means these as opposed, and not those. Ve'ela, but ve'ela, the vav, and these are, ve'ela, ma'isif ala rishonim. Maharishonim misinai, afela misinai. Which means we just finished Aseres HaDivros, in which the Torah explains in great detail how the Rebbeinu Shalom came down to Har Sinai, and for the fire, the mount was on fire, etc. This was obviously from the Rebbeinu Shalom. This is what the Rebbeinu Shalom spoke to us as Klal Yisrael, unique among all the religions, that we can say that of 600,000 men and more than a million people, men and women and children, all saw this. They heard from God. As opposed to other religions, it's this is what Mohammed had a dream, and Yoshka was, he was deified, but there wasn't this event. So, Ma'ilem Sinai, just like the Aseres HaDivros, were explicitly from the Rebbeinu Shalom. These halosas of Parshas Mishpatim, which have to do with technical things. My ox scores your ox, etc., etc. Those type of halachas, these are also from Sinai. And also the Parshas Mishpatim has a lot of the Ben Adam L'Chaverei, how we have to treat somebody, how we have to be kind to widows and orphans, how we have to talk, how we cannot lie, etc., etc. A lot of Ben Adam L'Chaverei between man and his fellow man. So the Torah is emphasizing that this is all the same. It's all the same Torah. Just like Anoich Hashem Elokecha is from the Rebbeinu Shalom, so Ki Gai Fishur Asher Re'ehu. If an ox goes, another man's ox. So this is also Misinai. And certainly all the Beinon L'Chaverei, how to treat each other, how to treat people, how to talk, etc., etc., that is also the same Torah from the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Ovadia Mibar Tanur, the classic Perush on Masechta Avos, writes in the beginning of Masechta Avos on the pasuk, the Mishnah that says Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. The Rabbeinu Ovadia, known as the Rav, writes Omer Ani Lefi Shemesechta Zu Enemi Senes Al Perush Mitzvah HaMitzvahs Mitzvahs HaTorah. Masechta Avos, it's a Masechta in Shas, but yet it's not like typical Masechtas that are based on Psukim. Kashar Masechta Shabbatera. Ela Kula Musarim Umidas. A lot of it is Musar and how to talk and how to act. A person's midas, a person's anhaga, a person's how he acts, how he deals with people. V'chachmei umayis ha'olam gam kein chibru sfarim kemo shabadu milibon. And in the secular society, all religions have books of ethics and how to treat people, etc. Shabadu milibon, which they invented from their own heart or their own minds. How a person has to deal with his fellow man. Lefichach, says the Rabbeinu Ovadia, Hischil hatana b'mesechta zu Moshe kibel Torah misinai. So the prelude to Masechta Avos is that this is all from Sinai as well. Moshe kibel Torah misinai. Lo yimar lecha, to tell you, shehamidas v'hamusrim shebezu Masechta, that the musar, which means the ethical teachings, and the midas, the characteristics of a human being, lo badu oisam chachmei HaMishnah. The Chachmei Mishnah did not think of this on their own. El af elu nemru b'Sinai, but they were said as well from our Sinai. And this is what this Rashi goes ahead and tells us. of Elam Sinai. And that is to say, what Rabbeinu Avadia is saying, for instance, there are halachas in this parsha about, there's a limud for Lashon Hara. So the concept of Lashon Hara is something that is uniquely Jewish. You'll tell me, what do you mean? Even the secular world has concepts of gossip. You're not supposed to gossip about somebody. But most people understand gossip as it's being, because it's not true. It's just gossip. It's just rumors. When you go ahead and tell a non-Jew or a non-religious Jew that there's an issue called Lashon Hara, you're not supposed to be evil about somebody else, they'll say, well, that's true. If it's true, it's not gossip. Well, it may not be gossip, but it's Lashon Hara. Now, how was this invented? In the secular world, this concept of you're not allowed to say something about somebody that's bad, even though it's 100% true, that's uniquely Jewish. Or, the other example, the halachas, which again we learn out in this week's parsha, that if your ox is your friend's ox is in trouble, and you have two people you can help. One is your friend and one is your enemy, your sworn enemy. The halacha is you have to go ahead and help your enemy before you help your friend. Lochuf es midas. In order to go ahead and to overcome your midas, you shouldn't hate anybody. And therefore, to go ahead and to reinforce that, you go ahead and help him. I mean, imagine that. You're driving around the road and there are two cars that have flat tires, or within 50 yards of each other. And one of the flats is a person that you cannot stand. He's your enemy. And the other person, a little down the road, he's your friend. Who should you help? Well, of course you help your friend. This guy can fix his own flat. No, so the Torah goes and says, no. You have to go ahead and help the enemy. Lochof es Yitzray Odif. In order to go ahead and to overcome your natural instincts and to work on your midas, that even a person I don't like, I'm going to go ahead and help. So these are examples. These are examples of the halachas that these are misinai. Only the Rebbeinu Shem could go ahead and demand this from us, not to speak evil about someone even if it's true, or to go ahead to help someone you don't like before you help someone that you do like. The example that I cite for this is another example, and that is the concept of Hashavas Aveda, which means there's a mitzvah in this week's parsha of returning lost objects. So, you'll say, well, of course, in society, they also have, it's being a good Samaritan, returning a lost object, even though, the common concept of finders keepers, losers weepers, etc. But if you want to be a good Samaritan, you should return something, even though, you could go ahead and keep the wallet and all the money that's in it, but you shouldn't do that, you should return it. That's in the secular world as well. But Hashavas Aveda in the Jewish world is much more than that. There was a person. His name was Dankner. He lived in Tel Aviv, and he was a reporter for one of the secular newspapers in Eretz Yisrael. I think it was the Hamodia or Ma'ariv. I don't know which one it was. So he was given an assignment to go and to interview Rav Shach, Zecher Tzaddik Livrocha, the great Gadol Ador, Panovich Rashiva, Rav Elazar Man Shach. So it's not a big drive from Tel Aviv to Bnei Brak, and he goes ahead and drives there, pulls up to the yeshiva, and walks into the Beis Medrash and says, I would like to speak to Rav Shach. So they're not going to let this guy get with 100 yards of Rav Shach. So it says, so sorry, he's not available. They wouldn't take him to Rav Shach. That's what Rav Shach needs, a secular reporter from a anti-Haredi newspaper. And anyway, okay, so the guy figured, well, I can't make that, I have to come on a story. So I starts walking around the yeshiva, just looking around. He goes to the bulletin board, and he looks on the bulletin board to see what's hung there. And he says, he sees lost buttons from a shirt, 3 buttons. If this is yours, then come to room so-and-so. Or found a big pen. Again, where the person has it, what his room number is, etc., etc. So he comes back to his office in Tel Aviv, and he has to write a story. And he says, going to yeshiva, going from Tel Aviv to Bnei Brak, maybe just a few kilometers or miles or whatever it may be, but it's a world apart. It's literally like going to a different planet. There's so many things that to write about and how different. Like anybody who's been in a base medrash, he says, how can you concentrate? Everybody's yelling at each other. The noises. I'm used to a library where you can hear a pin drop. So there are many things to report. But what did he decide to report? The bulletin board with the lost and found items. Shirt buttons, big pens, and such trivialities as this. He says, in a university that I went to, if there was a big pen lying on the floor, people would not have been bent over to get it, because what's a big pen? How much does that cost? Not worth it. But that people can be so important or careful about another person's money that they do the trouble of putting up a sign for a big pen, that's something that we don't have in our world. And that is what the Bartanura and which Rashi is saying, that these laws of Beinon al-Chavera, how to treat another human being, they're divine. They come from the Ribbon Shalom, and not something that is invented by convention of people that come up with these thoughts on their own. All this is the Torah Sinai, the Torah from the Ribbon Shalom.